Years. It pulls you in and doesn't let go.
Okay, hello. Welcome to the Carousel Podcast. I have with me today William. Welcome to the show. You are William Hunter Duncan. Sorry, I didn't want to get that wrong. I had it in my head. Thank you so much for joining. You're a Substacker and a Twitter. You are on Twitter, right?
I am on Twitter, yep.
Yeah, and you specialize in Torah interpretations of current events, sort of from a shared perspective that everybody listening to this probably has. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's very good to be here and very good to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, on Twitter, we should retweet this so everybody knows you're on there. But you had this piece called Virgo to Libra, which caught my eye largely because it mentions me in it. And it was talking about sort of where we're at. You did a Torah reading, which I'll pull up on screen here. Maybe you can just tell us a little bit about this piece and how this works. Do you read a Torah for each piece that you do, or how does this go?
Well, I've been a long-time user of the tarot, and I haven't really made that much part of the Substack, but I've also been studying astrology, and so I thought I'd do a monthly piece on the change in the zodiac, and then would add a tarot reading to give some kind of context, extra context to what the next month might look like. And so I started in March, and then I think that was with Aries. That's the beginning of the cycle. Aries and Mars, the god of war. And so I need, part of it is, like I said, I didn't know that much about tarot, so I thought, or astrology, so I thought I would just write about it and learn about it as I write about it. So this past one was Virgo into Libra. Libra is the harvest time. Libra is ruled by Venus, so it is about, Venus is about love, they say. But there's also another side of Venus that doesn't get talked about very much, and Venus is known as the consort of Mars. And of course, she softens Mars, the god of war, but she also stands behind him in his fury. And so, so in this piece, I don't know, I feel like I've done a pretty good job of like making an assessment of the times. I think it's helped me and some of my readers make sense of where we're at. It's very confusing these days.
Okay, so tell us some substance. What are we? Where are we? What are we dealing with here?
Well, that first card is, so this is a 3-card tarot spread. The first card is the situation card, the situation as it stands. Second card is the challenge card, and the third card is the outcome. So the first card here is the Emperor. The Emperor brings order to the world. Out of the primal chaos, the Emperor brings order. He brings a lot of forces together and creates and produces an empire out of that. But here, it's inverted. And so that generally means that there is no order, or there's, instead of a emperor reigning, chaos reigns. And so I don't know. Most people, I think, who follow the news feel a lot like chaos reigns right now. But you have to actually kind of admit that that's where we're at to move on to the challenge. And the challenge here is the death card. And anytime anybody who's not very familiar with the tarot is going to get a bit of a fright anytime death shows up. But the death card does not generally ever mean actual death. What it means is a radical shift, radical transition. A business is failing, a relationship is failing, something is failing, and it is a transition. Death is always, in the esoteric sense, the end of something, but also the beginning of something. So here, though, it is inverted. And so what does that mean? I took that to mean like the right, the challenge for the right is to deal with what I've called many times the death cult of the left. Liberalism for 300 years now has been destroying every boundary imaginable. And we've come to a point where we have abortion on demand for any reason at any time in a lot of states. We've got the COVID thing, like forcing young people to take jabs and not acknowledging any of the harms of that, flooding the country with basically a mercenary army of 20 million young men and not acknowledging any of the harms of that. So you can go on and on. So the challenge then is, what do we do about that? That has that's infected America. It's infected the whole West. It is destroying the West. And so that's a challenge. The outcome was what's called by the Golden Dawn, this card, the Eight of Wands, the Lord of Swiftness. So wands are fire. And think of the four elements, fire, water, earth, air. Wands are fire. And fire represents creativity, creative impulse. And so the Lord of Swiftness is basically like the idea of just freedom, like being free, wide open spaces, wilderness, like being able to say what you want to say when you need to say it, that kind of thing. And so Lord of Swiftness, what does that mean? So if you've acknowledged that chaos reigns, if you've acknowledged that there is this sort of like death impulse, rising chaos in the West, and you face that, then swiftness is it's there for you. That energy is there for you. And I think we've seen a lot of that from the Trump administration over the last 6 months. They came right out of the gates. Liberals had nothing to say about it. They just came out and they basically slashed and burned, and they're still doing it. They still have the Dems on their back feet. But swiftness, you showed, I posted your piece about the boxing match, because in that boxing match, the one guy was swift and fast, the other guy was a power puncher. The swift and fast guy wore him down over time. But it takes time. You can't just come out and start punching like crazy for 2 rounds. You're going to wear yourself out. So there's a caution here with that Lord of Swiftness. There's swiftness, but there's also haste. If you are too hasty, then you can get ahead of yourself. And now, there's been a lot of Substackers online on the right who've been angling for a lot more swiftness, basically rounding them up. Well, would be a swift action, but I don't know. That might be too much, too fast. I don't know. I don't have that answer, but that's what the card said.
It's amazing how this is implicating so many things that I personally have been seeing and that I personally like care about, and very much the way that I see this. But before we get into that, why does the Eight of Wands? It's so funny because eight is like, one of like, how everybody has like their number.
Hmm.
Eight was always like my number. But the Eight of Wands has a triangle and a five-pointed star on it. Why is that?
The five-pointed star is the pentagram, and the pentagram is one of the most powerful images in the occult. In the occult, the pentagram is believed to be an emblem of power to ward off evil. It's typically said to be an emblem of evil, but that's generally from people who don't really know anything about it. The upright triangle is a symbol of fire as well. So it's wands in fire and another symbol of fire. And that fire is on top of that pentagram, that symbol of power. And so to me, it's a symbol of the fire that is creativity, the fire that is moving through the world, building things, creating things with immense amount of power behind it. And then in the upper corner, you have another triangle, upright triangle with a feather in it. I believe that's considered in these cards an ostrich feather. And so that is about beauty, maintaining a sense of beauty while you are acting in the world.
Wow, so many things. So what does it mean to have the fire on top of the pentagram?
Uh, that's a good question. I guess I don't know why they would have I think, like, the fire that they're talking about with the wands is fire moving out into the world, whereas the pentagram then is the symbol of, like, the core of the being. Like, if a man is spread out, standing, like Da Vinci's man, like, he's got his arms out, legs out, he looks like a pentagram. That's like the core power of the being. Then the fire is coming out of the being, creating things in the world. That's how I see it.
Very interesting. So, yeah. So the point, just so everybody understands, the point, this brings us to basically 3 weeks ago when must have been a Tuesday, we found out that Charlie Kirk got killed. And, I was just reeling for that whole week and completely disoriented and really feeling bad, and just maybe not even bad is the wrong word, just feeling like, confused, kind of confused and uncertain of where we were going from there, really. And, it was like a question mark. Like the question mark started on that Tuesday and continued through that Saturday. And that Saturday was that fight. It was the fight between Canelo Alvarez and what's his name? I can't even remember his name right now. But let me find it so people can know. It was an incredible fight with Terrence Crawford. Was it Terrence Crawford or it's Bud Crawford? I think it's Bud Crawford. Okay, hold on. I think it's Bud. It's both. They call him Bud Crawford, Terrence Crawford. So, I'm not like a huge boxing guy. I don't think anybody is today. Nobody really like knows what's going on in boxing, but I got invited to watch it, and it was like going on and on. I thought that the thing was going to start at 7, and then it didn't start till like 9:45. So I was just sitting there like, But then the fight started, and the earlier fights weren't very engaging. But then the fight started, and it was like one of those things where, if you've ever watched the Olympics, and most of it's just kind of like blah, but then for whatever reason, you'll see like a gold medalist figure skater guy doing his thing, and you'll immediately be like enraptured by the screen because you're seeing like somebody transcending kind of like the medium to the point where somebody who's not into this thing can tell that they're watching something really special. They're watching somebody who's turning this thing into an art. And that fight really was this for me. Like I started watching this fight, and the previous fights were like, okay, whatever. I can't tell what's going on. But this fight, you immediately could tell these guys were like really, really engaged, and each one, they were there really they were not. This wasn't just like a run of the mill fight. It was like a very special, important fight. You could tell for both of them for whatever reason, and this guy Bud Crawford is much smaller and kind of lanky, and Canelo Alvarez is this huge back. He's this big, powerful guy. And they went, however many, 13 rounds, however many rounds it is. There was no knockout, but the whole match was the same thing, which was this really powerful, hulking guy going after this much smaller guy, right? And the smaller guy he had such a better strategy than the big guy. Canelo was this big, powerful guy who kept going for huge haymaker punches. And Bud Crawford is just, you can tell he's got a plan. And the plan is every time Canelo goes for one of these haymakers, he's going to hit him back. He's just going to get him once in the face or a couple times in the face, not hard, not super hard, but just like boom, 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 really quick. Every single time Canelo goes for his big punch, he's just going to get punished. And over however many 13 rounds, it just wore Canelo down and down and down and down. And he just couldn't, and then he started getting woozy and started he like very obviously lost the fight because he just couldn't connect. He connected like a couple times with the big punches, but it wasn't even so much that he couldn't connect. It was just that Bud Crawford was so much faster than him, so much more able to do speed, that those little pitter-patter punches after every time Canelo went for a big punch, it just weakened him over time. And that's kind of like what you're saying. It's like the right, when I see the victories that the right has had, my favorite victory that we've had, and there was an article nobody read in the Wall Street Journal besides me, all about Elon Musk and Doge taking over. It wasn't just USAID, it was USAID and via this other office, which was like the Office of Budgetary some shit. I forget. It's like the office of like, some sort of random budgetary office that has way too much power. And the Wall Street Journal article is all about the night of inauguration, Doge was in their system dismantling it before they even woke up in the morning. They didn't even know what happened, and it's like that's where people like Elon can do so much more than right-wing conservatives, right? Right-wing conservatives cannot do jack shit. And the other side, our enemies, or whatever, maybe they're not even our enemies. Maybe they're just a completely dominant force that needs a counterbalance. You can't, again, as we're seeing with right-wing violence or left-wing violence right now with Charlie Kirk, the right has no ability to respond at all. We have no haymaker. We have nothing. We have no protests. We have no counter-violence. We have no institutional lawfare. We don't have any punches, really, to respond to something like Charlie Kirk getting killed. All we can do is do what the right wing always does, which is whine and complain on social media. right? which in a way is speed too. It's not that our social, it's not that, the right wing can meme. Memes are speed, right? Memes are speed. They are a instantaneous mimetic response to something.
Yes.
And so, like, when I'm seeing, like, it was amazing watching that fight because I was like, I just felt this overwhelming feeling of like that question mark being answered to me. Like, I was like, wow, this is an amazing, this is, I recognize this is kind of cringy, but at the time, I just felt this overwhelming feeling of like, oh, like, this is what we need to do. We need to like go fast. That's our advantage. Our advantage over the other side. They're so much more powerful than us. It's like 100-1. They have all the power on their side. But the one thing they cannot do is move quickly. Because they're too dumb. They're too filled with DEI hires. They are too bureaucratic. Their system is sclerotic. They've got all the cards. They've got everything on their side, but they cannot move quickly. And in my business, I see this all the time. My agency, we do branding and marketing. We charge 1/6 of what what the agencies I used to work for make. But we can make 10 times more things in the amount of time that my other thing did. Because we're all a bunch of weirdo internet dudes who talk shit to each other and just move really fast. Where there's no bullshit. We yell at each other. We say, you're stupid, but it gets it done really, really quickly. And that's what I see from Musk. He knows that. He knows that if we move really quickly, we can destroy USAID. Because they don't know how to stop it. And so that's just kind of like where I feel like where we're at. And it's unbelievable that you did this reading and we got to the exact same conclusion, which is, Lord of Swiftness, which is, I completely am just blown away by that.
When the left punches, they punch hard. They have spent the last 40 years like taking control of the institutions of America and the West, generally speaking. And when they punch, we saw it during Biden. They punched hard. Like they built an entire infrastructure for censorship in those 4 years.
Yeah.
They opened the floodgates to 20 million military-aged men, a mercenary army, essentially. In Minnesota, literally, Walz got reelected in 2022. And the first two things that he did was make abortion illegal at any time for any reason. And then he made Minnesota a trans refuge state. Those are power punches, like right now, like right out of the gates. And there's no defense against that.
Yeah.
And so the only defense that I've seen is like exactly what Trump and his people have done. They have come out like quick, fast.
Yeah.
And they're still doing it. Like even this government shutdown is like, didn't see that coming.
Right.
They kind of saw it coming, but then they're just like, oh, well, suck on this now. Like, all right. And now while Democrats are unable to do anything about it, they can go through the government and basically lay waste. So that's quick. That's
right, because that's pivoting. It's the ability to pivot with new information.
And that's the thing, though. That fight took like, what'd you say, 13, 14 rounds or whatever. It's not a quick process. Like a lot of the guys on the right just wanted to go out and just like round up 10,000 of them, like tomorrow. But then what do? You got 10,000 guys in lockup, and then what do? What do you charge them with? What you know?
Right.
And now you got to explain that to the American people. How you just basically did exactly what they're accusing you of. So
yeah.
So
yeah.
more
No.
like,
Yeah.
this is a long game. This is a very long game. We need triumvirate power for the right, ongoing for a while.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I'm just a writer living in central Minnesota.
Oh, you're in central Minnesota.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh man. So you're in the belly of the beast out there.
Yeah. I mean, where I live, I think the town I live right outside of town. The town went like 70% Trump.
Wow.
The
Okay.
county went like 80%. I don't think Walz is going to be able to leave the Twin Cities on his run for his third term without getting basically gang tackled. He was like an autocrat during COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, he
Yeah.
destroyed people. He destroyed businesses. Like he
Yeah.
laid waste to the state with a smile on his face,
Wow.
and then just stuck it. Like they had a 19 billion dollar surplus in 2022-23 because of federal COVID funds or whatever. What did he do? He increased the government $19 trillion or $19 billion, whatever. Right?
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, the next year you got like a $10 billion deficit. So what's he going to do? He's going to mine outstate. He's going to mine the conservatives outstate.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So how did it get like that in Minnesota? Because it's funny, I have a lot of experience in Michigan in recent years, and then Wisconsin is a place that I've always loved. I love Milwaukee. I've gone to Milwaukee for a lot of times, and then there's Minnesota, and so these states are all kind of ish part of the same vague in my mind like Scandinavian, don't you know, kind of belt. They're the don't you know belt. We're rooted in Scandinavian immigration, and also, of course, German in Wisconsin. But they all kind of have a similar vibe, right? And you have Michigan, which is like really contested territory. It seems like there's totally two sides. Detroit is destroyed. Whitmer's fucking nuts. But on the other hand, there's a right wing kind of like pulse in Michigan, a little bit in some places. Wisconsin to me still feels right wing. Like Wisconsin feels weirdly free. Like when you go out in Milwaukee, it's still it's like you can smoke cigarettes places. Like people seem to be like vaguely. It feels a little bit like being in Florida. Like people are still kind of like have balls in Wisconsin. I don't know why. I don't know how. I haven't been to Minnesota since I was like 12 years old, so I have no idea what's going on in Minnesota. But I sort of get the opposite impression where it's like that's just gone full Portland. So why did that happen to Minnesota?
When I lived in Minneapolis for like 22 years. And when I first lived there was like this sort of, we want to be like Portland. Portland's cool. We want to be like Portland. We want to be like Midwest Portland.
Yeah.
And so they've been trying to outdo the West Coast for a long time. But of course, the West Coast is like third world at this point. And yet still, they are trying to outdo the West Coast. A lot of it is Tim Walz. He comes off as this yokel guy, but he's he's an autocrat. But the core of it is, they call it Minnesota nice. But there's like, okay, so it's Minnesota nice, and like, if you ask for an address, anyone will be happy to give you any address except for anywhere near where they actually live. Like they're really nice, but most people are very standoffish in Minnesota. But that also somehow sort of contributes to like not wanting to look racist. Minnesota is still like 90+% white.
God,
but
is that true? That's
Minneapolis is going to be, Minneapolis is even like probably 80% white. But
is that true?
They're still going to vote for a Muslim Somali for their mayor because they don't want to appear racist. Mm-hmm.
So where's good old Jacob Frey going? He's getting moved up. He's going to go be governor somewhere?
Well, it's an open question at this point. Somehow, I guess the Democrats basically reneged on the vote for the Somali dude.
Wait, what happened with that?
So apparently, and I don't haven't really heard the backstory, but I sort of get the sense that like the Somalis have a lot of power in Minneapolis now, and I think they sort of rigged the vote. It was at the Democratic convention thingy or whatever, primary convention, and so then the Democratic Party stepped in and said, nope, no good, got to do it over.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't know
So
that. Yeah.
I think that was like the center Democrats basically putting their foot down.
Yeah.
But um, but I don't know. I don't think Frey can beat the dude because he's not Somali.
Oh, so Frey is running against this guy. This is the primary. It's Frey
Frey,
versus this guy.
yeah, and
Wow.
Frey has been like stepping over backwards, trying to ingratiate himself with the Somali community, and then they basically threw him to the curb. But I don't. Frey is Frey is like one of these theater kids who
Yes,
is just
totally.
gonna have like he's gonna have a great career in the Democratic Party at
Totally. Yeah.
some level somewhere.
Right. Well, that's what he's been doing, right? He's been
Mhm.
there's got to be a name for these mayors. This is just again another example of the all-consuming power of the Democratic Party or of the left, whatever you want to call it, which is that they somehow have a amazing farm system where they breed these people who are, usually Ivy League or, Duke, whatever. I don't know where Frey went. Probably one of these places. Do we, where the hell did Jacob Frey go
I
to
have
school?
no idea. Probably Ivy
I'm gonna
League.
guess some Ivy League school. Okay, no, he went to William and Mary, which is like okay, similar. JD at Villanova. So they get these guys and they find them somewhere. It's not always Ivy League. Ivy League is also kind of like declining because it used to be these people all came from Ivy League schools. Who's the senator also from now that there's another one of these? He's a carbon copy of Jacob Frey, and he's in Georgia. And
Oh,
he,
yep.
yeah, whatever that guy's name is. Um, and they're usually not even like from the place. They're like they're vaguely from the places that they end up being the mayor of. And either they're this Frey type, which is this kind of like, slightly effeminate, vaguely Jewish, urban type of guy, or they're like a light-skinned black woman, right? It's like and they're so obvious. They all speak in the same way. They speak in therapy speak. They're perfectly trained in Alinskyite like actions of various kinds. I mean, in his own way, Walls is also one of these people, right? He's like the bumpkin version of one of
Mm.
these types. But you see these Nashville people are this type. It's like they're the very theater kid. They're enacting whatever type they've been given. They're like, oh, you're like an Afro Angela Davis type. Just like do that. Or you're a nice Jewish kid type. Go do that. And so anyway, they're all sort of replicas of this era of civil rights that doesn't is in lives large in the mind of the boomer. And then they go to these towns. Every city in America has one of these people. Now it's ridiculous. And then something horrible happens in one of these places, and then these like ridiculous mayors who are just like farm system for the Dems. They have this look in their eyes like they've been caught in the head. They're like a deer in headlights, and they're just like, "Oh shit! I didn't realize I was gonna actually have to like." Pretend like I care about this city because they don't give a fuck. But Jacob Frey does not give a fuck about Minneapolis. He cares about his career, right? I mean, like I would assume he's out there crying and kneeling for George Floyd. Like, does he really give a shit about Minneapolis? Um, and it's such a funny phenomenon. And when you see it, like this just happened in Charlotte. When you see it, you're like, I cannot believe how powerful this network is because where do these people come from? Where do they get these fucking people from? And it's just there's so much money in these NGOs. They just grow them from seed. Whereas our side, it's just a bunch of random people. It's like a bunch of it's like random people who just one day show up and like are pissed off. Whereas we have no system. We have no system for training these people. I mean, I guess that's what. I guess that's kind of what Turning Point was a like a farm system, sort of. I guess.
Which the left and just being liberal is more about being part of the group, being part of a system. Like a lot of the people that I know on the left, just basically when they talk, they are just repeating the narratives that the Democratic Party and media have established for them. Whereas the right is a bunch of business owners and individually minded people who and families living out their life, and they'd rather not be bothered, and they can't handle institutional much of anything. And so most people on the right just don't like institutions, and they don't like government, generally speaking. And so the left is just naturally more able to network that way and find talent that way. You know, the right has like a network for building like Fox News talent, and they've got a network for, you know, finding influencers that they will, you know, that was Charlie Kirk to an extent. Like he came right out of high school, didn't want to go to college, was immediately speaking about small government, and because he was charismatic, then he found some money, some backers who wanted to back him up. But that just doesn't happen on any kind of systematic level for like government, like running government, putting people in positions in government. So the right is always going to be at a disadvantage that way, unless the right is willing to get to build some kind of farm system for putting in talent in important places.
Do you think that that's going to happen? Because part of me feels like actually the right today is in some ways a mirror image of the far left in the maybe the 60s or 70s. You know, like all the conspiracy stuff is on our side. We're so pissed. We're so angry. You know, like everything is stacked against us. Not that everything was, of course, not everything was stacked against the left then. This is a big point of argument with the whole Yarvin thing. But do you think that we will? Like, do you think that basically, as you said, we're just so sort of naturally Kulak-ish in the sense that we're doing, you know, we're running our jet ski company. Like we don't really have time. I certainly don't. I mean, like I try to blend it, right, as much as I can, but I don't have any actual time to do activism, you know, at all. So, do you think that we'll learn it, or are we just always going to be this kind of guerrilla army?
I think back in the 50s and 60s, it was the right that mostly filled the place of government. The right, like church groups, civic groups. The right basically took care of the community in the sense that the right were the business owners, the right were the people who made the money. They took care. They made sure that people had a leg up if they needed it. They took care of people who fell on hard times. They took care of the community. That is basically noblesse oblige. That's the like elite taking care of the people. The right has almost entirely lost that sense of like taking care of the working class. It's only since Trump that the like working people have actually been even part of the dialogue on the right for a very
That's true.
long
Yeah.
I can remember.
Yeah, that's very true.
More and more, there's more recognition that if you're going to have order, if you're going to have an empire, if you're going to have a nation state, then you need people to manage it. You need competent people who take control and manage it. And if you aren't going to do that, if the right isn't going to do that, then you're going to get a bunch of DEI douchebags running everything. And that's where we're at. Like, it's the collapse of complex systems because for a generation now, they've just been filling getting rid of the competent people and putting in people who just are there because of they're a woman.
Yeah, right.
They're brown.
Yeah. Okay, so well, let's get back to the tarot here for a second. Let's get back to the esoteric sphere. So I had a guy who used to be a good friend in it. Have you seen Astral? Have you
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
Astral online? So he used to be a good friend, and he had a great episode a while back that was about the changing of the years to the age of Aquarius from the age of Pisces. Now, I've heard several people say that this is actually not correct, but for whatever reason, the millennium goes backwards. Is that right? And so it's like Aquarius is before Pisces. Do you know anything about that? Like the shifting from Aquarius to Pisces, or sorry, Pisces to Aquarius, which just happened, right? That's like year 2000 is Pisces to Aquarius.
I asked John Michael Greer about that, like where would you put the transition point? And I can't remember what the date, what it was, like 1847.
Oh, okay. So we're 100 years late.
Yeah. And so
Okay.
that was like kind of the beginning of the modern round of industrial change. And so I'm assuming that we're in it, but we're early in that transition. And Aquarius is the water bearer. I don't
Right.
know that much about Aquarius. The water bearer implies, I mean, water is the stuff of life. Like there is no life without water. And so the water bearer to me implies something like taking care of the waters, and that would be implied taking care of all life. That would, part of industrialization, part of the West maturing, and that's not to say that any other culture has been better, but we're very much removed from nature. Most people don't really have much of any kind of connection to nature, and that just then creates a lot of like the systemic pollution that we're dealing with. If you don't care about nature, you don't care about natural systems or natural rhythms, then you're going to put a bunch of crap in the food. You're gonna have a bunch of atrazine and glyphosate in the water. Endocrines all through, endocrine disruptors all throughout the system that are making people gay, basically. And so, I mean, that's right. And it's not just making people gay. Like how much of an increase has there been in, like, mastectomies, like breast cancer? What about the increase in autism? It's not just Tylenol, it's like systemic. So anyway, I think that the age of Aquarius is going to be like an awakening of a kind, gradually over time, that nature matters, like taking care of the earth actually matters. And if you're going to be a healthy society, and if you're going to be a healthy human being, then you need a healthy environment.
Yeah, I think that right, there's some sort of environmental part of it. So the characteristics of Aquarius are all very like youthful, and like the way that it was put to me is that Pisces is the end. Pisces is like the end of the zodiac, and that's what Pisces is, like the most death like. It has like 1 foot in death. And what's confusing here is that technically the first sign is Aries. So you're supposed to be going counterclockwise. But for whatever reason, in the millenniums, we go clockwise, which somebody is going to have to explain why that is. But the interpretation that Astral had was that it's like we were in, like what Jesus is the fish. So we were in this era that was very kind of obsessed with death. It was obsessed with the afterlife, and it had 1 foot always kind of in the grave. Whereas Aquarius is like a total new beginning. It's like everything is like submerged. everything's upside down. Everything is upside down from where it was before. And everything's kind of like babyish and new. And, you kind of started this by saying everything is like nonsensical. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's kind of what I'm seeing. Like nobody knows how to make sense of anything. Nobody knows, but all the dragons that we had to slay before, all the things that we thought were so important. I think AI is my favorite example of this. For how long has humanity been sort of had this notion of itself that, well, what separates us from the machine or the animal is that we can create art. Whereas, as it turns out, the machine is actually very good at creating art. It's actually it's totally very good. It's very proficient at it. So it's not that making art, and that's, I just think, so confusing and profound for people. And I think that that's where we're at. It's like previously, who were the dragons that had to be slayed? Scarcity, hunger, chaotic confusion, disconnectedness of people. Whereas, the big fear then was being left alone and outside of the group, and you die because you've been cast out. Whereas now, all of those things are the reverse. Now the big threat to you is overindulgence, overeating, overconnectedness. It's all the things we had before, but they've been flipped on our heads. And it's like, my sense is that we've just entered a completely new era. And to me, the new dragon of this era, of this millennium, is going to be, this is not the right word for it, but globalism. It's basically global connectedness. Like, that's the threat now. The threat is now no longer we're going to get lost on our own and we're never going to make it anywhere and blah, blah, blah. The threat now is that we're going to be too connected to each other, and that everything will be the same, and that everything will be the same led by one totally all-powerful, tyrannical global force.
Mm-hmm. Which is essentially what already exists to a degree. And that's mostly what the left represents. Like I said, we try to make the whole world safe. Except you need to take risks. Right. If you're going to create anything, you have to take risks. You have to challenge yourself. And you have to lose. You have to make mistakes. Any culture that eliminates that is not going to be creative by definition. Totally. And so that safety, that trying to be safe all the time about everything, creates this immense institutional government system that is crawling all over the planet, trying to control everything. Yeah. And and sometimes that seems almost inevitable. However, clearly, with the rise of Trump and MAGA and the increasing rise of right-wing leadership in the EU, there's still this just strong undercurrent of wanting to be free, wanting to be free to make mistakes, to be creative, create the life that I want for myself, without government telling me what I can do or how I should go about that. And yeah, and then it creates situations like we have in California. California just came up with some sort of draft plan to nationalize all the farmland in California and give it to immigrants, which is the same sort of we're going to control everything, and we're going to make everything right. We're going to improve life for everybody while we make everybody basically miserable and starve to death.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's how do we put ourselves in their head? What? God, it's amazing. I have this neighbor who you spoke earlier about a problem that I'll call the Hicklib problem, which is funny because actually the Hicklib problem is strongest in the Midwest, where you wouldn't really call the provincial people of the Midwest Hicks, right? That's not really the right word for them. But the Hicklib problem, for those who don't know, is just as you kind of characterized it, the cyclical nature of the people in more of the provinces trying to follow the cities and also being just sort of suffused with this fear of missing out, also slash white guilt thing, where they're constantly trying to live up to like the dinner party sensibility of the elites in another place, in the urban places. So in doing that, the teacher in Michigan, this is a real person that I one time encountered. He's trying to make himself like the best version of some liberal person he sees on TV. So in a way, they're more committed to the leftist ideology of the regime than the people in the city, which is why you see in LA now right wing is cool here. Now every art show you go to now is like they're trying to get a little edgy right wingishness in there because the cycle just goes that way. Whereas if you go to an art show in Michigan, it's doing this like Basquiat thing that was, it's like rehashing Basquiat because they're just behind, right? They're just kind of like moving behind. But that being said, I don't know, you see this everywhere. You see this completely permeating the minds of the boomers. They're completely brainwashed with MSNBC talking points. They think that they're living in this tyrannical world where they're like Jimmy Kimmel is a freedom fighter. They literally think that. And it's just astounding. It's like, when is that going to end? Is it even possible to stop this Hicklib program from happening? Like, will it dawn on people that we're in this sort of globalist paradigm ever? Or are they, you're probably surrounded by this all the time. It sounds like you, thankfully, are in a place where people are sensible about stuff. But are these like MSNBC zombies screwing things up in your part of the world also?
Well, like I said, the town around here is like 70% Trump in the last election. But that 30% of liberals is definitely overrepresented in governments and NGOs around here and movers and shakers in the community, basically, the arts folks and all that. And, I had a liberal the other day tell me that immigrants don't get any welfare. They don't commit any crimes. And white men create 92% of the violent acts. I'm like, you live in an entirely unreality, like total unreality. Like everything you just said is like the opposite of reality.
Of reality, yes.
Yeah.
That's
and
so
true. The left, for the most part, and we've all been forced to live in this, but the opposite of good, when the right talks about the good, true, and beautiful, the opposite of that, the inversion of that, is essentially evil. That is like chaos. And so that's sort of where the left is inhabiting, and that's part of the left's problem at this point, why they're so like moribund and can't really respond to what Trump is doing, because they're still living in that age when they were totally in control and they could live in that unreality. But sooner or later, unreality is going to come back and bite you. Like, you can't live in a totally fake world forever. Like, at some point you're going to have to face reality. And so but I don't know. I think for the most part, after COVID, I don't know that a lot of these people can come back.
Right.
Like, if you can't admit
that was the test, right? That was the real test.
That COVID was like the greatest psyop in the history of the world, If you cannot understand like how deep that rabbit hole goes, then if you think that like Andrew, if you think these people like who were running this arrangement were telling the truth, then I don't know how you can come back from that. And the trans thing, like even like a guy like Andrew Sullivan is like, how are the Democrats ever going to come back from the
From
trans?
trans, right? It's true because it's like it is the two most extreme tests. It's like, can you truly allow your political consciousness to reverse the reality that is in front of your face? Like, how strong is your brainwashing? Like that's really what those are a test of. That said, though, I don't know if it's like, do you think that COVID was a psyop? Like, what do you mean when you say a psyop?
Uh, so in 2019, October 2019, the banks were basically in a state of collapse. They needed to print like $5 trillion like right now to make sure those banks were solvent, but they couldn't just do that without hyperinflating the economy. They also had this problem of Trump, and they needed to get rid of Trump. So I think it was mostly like a test run for social control, and also being able to print like $20 trillion in a very short period, in like a 2-year period. So at one point, it's like get rid of Trump, keep the banks afloat, and empty out the treasury, something like that.
So are you saying that the whole thing was a setup, though? Like the whole, like it was a completely like there didn't even exist. Like there wasn't even a real thing.
I think there may have been something that was a virus, like something or other, but I'm also wondering, like, supposedly pneumonia disappeared, supposedly flu
Yeah.
disappeared,
Right.
supposedly RSV didn't exist before that.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, no, it's like you look at the flu numbers, and of course, no liberal could ever just take this very obvious graph and just look at it. But you look at the flu numbers, and it's like, boom, it all goes away.
Hmm.
I
And
don't
so
know. Yeah, I
so
don't know
it's
if
not
it was.
like
Yeah.
I'm not saying like everybody is in on this.
Right.
Everybody on
Well,
the
they
like,
couldn't be,
government
right?
was in on this
Yeah.
necessarily. People were primed for this. People were like primed and ready to like enact this. And that's the other thing about this. Like they turned doctors and nurses into like killers. Like they
Yeah.
told people to go home. If you turn blue, come back, and then we'll put you on a
Ventilator.
remdesivir and
Yeah.
a ventilator.
Which doesn't
Right?
work, and the ventilators
And
are bullshit. It's like they
and
don't
we
even fucking
can't
do anything.
we can't
Yeah.
even have a social conversation about that. If we
No.
can't have a social conversation about how those people are ever going to come back from that.
Yeah, to me, God, and also what you saw with COVID was just the global reach. You saw that we are now in a global system. That
Every government,
everywhere on Earth
every
is going to get talking points. They're going to decide this is the vibe. Now, of course, there were nations that did not participate. There were people who said no, we're not getting involved. I mean, everybody got involved in it to some degree, right? But there were nations that were much, much more reasonable about it. I mean, I think Sweden, for example, never had masks. And of course, the numbers were no different at all.
and it all
But yeah,
backfired in the sense that like everybody now is more aware. Like they're aware about how much this reaches through the entire world and how easy it was to get us to lock down, how easy it was to get us to like stand 6 feet away from each other. Uh,
how easy it was to get your friends and family members to just erase you, just like delete. Like, this is my fucking family.
mm-hmm.
And I'm going to allow the television to tell me that I am not allowed to like see them when they're dying. It's like,
Americans are a
and it
lot
was
more.
like, I mean, I think it's a little bit of what can go well, wrong will go wrong. I mean, it's like, it is a little bit like people simply did not have the cultural immune system to deal with understanding that a health system could betray them. I think that just your ordinary everyday person, even on the right, simply was not equipped to imagine that. They didn't think, oh, my doctor who's supposed to be helping me is actually part of a system that is exploiting me for all of my money. They didn't, your normal everyday person just simply did not have the ability to like put that in their brains. And so I think that that was a big part of it. Had it been anything else, right? Had it been any other thing besides an invisible airborne virus, I think people would have been a lot more able to see what was happening. So I do think it was a little bit like a Murphy's Law thing too. It was like that was able to happen, so it did. Um, but certainly, so fucking what? You know? Yeah, so what? So what, uncle, who said I couldn't come over to their house? Yeah, sorry. That was the test, man. You know, and it's like yeah, the test happens. We got the test. And if you failed the test, in my personal opinion, well, yeah, sorry. It's not like I'm going to like it's I probably lost, as I've said 7 bazillion times. I probably lost like 85% of the people in my life during that period from Trump through BLM. Mm-hmm. And it was tough, but it was also like, hey, you know what? I'm glad I found out. I'm glad I found out that like, we experienced the test and a lot of people failed the test. And look, if you can't pass the test, if you can't have the critical thinking ability to understand what was going on then you're not going to have the critical thinking ability the next time around either, in my opinion. So that to me was, how everybody in the world has this idea of like, oh, if I was in Nazi Germany, would I have been a Nazi? And the answer, of course, for the vast majority of people is yes, or at least if not a Nazi, a helper of the Nazis, right? That everybody who failed the COVID test would have been a Nazi. That's pretty much the test. And I'm glad it happened. It was horrible going through it, but I'm certainly glad it occurred so that we could separate the wheat from the chaff going forward.
It's definitely helped the right come of age and recognize like we better get organized, or we're going to go through this again. If they get like a digital coin, digital central bank digital coin. That's kind of thing is going to be compulsory whenever they feel like it, whenever they need to lock down, whenever they need to like tell us who's boss. Your bi-monthly multi-booster if you want to eat.
They did lose though. They did, to be fair, they did lose. They lost to their worst enemy. So it's like they didn't, on their end, they have to kind of think. And I think they do think. I think they think on their side, well, we can't really do that again because Trump won. Trump did win. So it's like, they didn't totally just dominate.
No, everything that they've been doing for the past 8 years, 10 years has ultimately failed. I don't think Trump is a savior necessarily, but in a sense, I feel like he's exactly what we need right now. Going back to that emperor card and that tarot reading, like that is Trump is filling the position of the emperor. The emperor is an archetype. Trump is not an emperor autocrat in the way that the left makes him out to be, but he's standing in for that energy. And you need that energy if you're going to maintain order, if you're going to have an orderly society. But, he's got a lot of support, but the support on the right is also very skeptical and has been, I think, harder on Trump than he necessarily deserves in a lot of cases because, you aren't going to change out an FBI in 6 months. An FBI the liberals spent 4 years basically kicking out all the conservatives. You aren't going to change over that FBI or CIA in 6 months. So
Well, and that's what we're
Yeah.
seeing, right? That's what we're seeing now is just the total impotence, the complete and total impotence of the right. I noticed this. I went to AmFest last year, ironically, and I interviewed Charlie Kirk, and he was great. Charlie was really a great guy, and very cool, much cooler than he seems on TV. Like really, really like a cool guy. He's like cool. Um, but AmFest, what I realized in being there is that it was like a giant ant colony or termites nest of uh, broadcasting. It was like a, it was like imagine a termite's nest, and every little hole in the termite's nest was a different sized broadcasting studio. Like that's like what that's what it was, and it occurred to me that's what the right wing has become. The right wing is just a screaming mechanism. That's it. It really truly is just the heckler's veto. It has become like the only thing right wing, the only thing where the money comes from, the only thing where the organizing comes from is in various versions of broadcasting, various versions of shouting, right? So that's what the right does. It shouts. It knows how to shout, and it shouts all day long. And in certain ways, it's even more developed than the left wing shouting system because that's what it does. It shouts, right? And there would be like it would be like every single booth was like, oh, here's a one man shop broadcasting podcast, and here's Daily Wire over here, which is like the big version. And I think now what we're seeing, and Trump is the perfect leader for such a system, right? Because he's a big shouter, he's a big talker. But I think what we're realizing now is that is very insufficient to provide a bulwark against the incredibly heavy power that the left wields. And I think that hopefully what we're learning is, yeah, man, we got to get some real teeth to this thing, or else it's just going to be shouting forever.
And I don't think what the right wants to do is like run through their own, like run through the institutions,
right,
or
yes,
corporations or whatever. Like,
right.
I'm more like burn most of the institutions down.
Yeah.
Like, spend the next 10 years burning down most of the institutions that are mostly just make work for liberals.
Totally. Yes.
Like that's the whole NGO ecosystem. It's make work for shit libs.
Yes.
And so destroy it. Like,
but how? How can you destroy it? That's the whole problem. It's like you see Rufo is over there doing these shame campaigns, and it's like, okay, it only works because it's like you get the anti-Semitism thing, but without that, what can you do? Well, where I mean, it's good. I'm not saying it's not good. It's good to like cleanse the schools where you can and set up your own, new school, whatever thing in Florida. I mean, Florida, I think, is doing a great job. But what else can you do?
Which, again, I think that's like that's a 10, 15-year process. If you're going to dismantle the much of the federal government, and a lot of the state governments, the state government in Minnesota is enormous. And so gradually destroying it, breaking it down over time. I'm not saying that's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that to me is what needs to happen if we're going to restore, if there's going to be like a restoration of America. Something of the genius of America is the way that America unleashed the creative potential of individuals.
Totally.
Like, that's why everybody in the world wants to come here, because they have dreams, they have ideas, they want to build things, but they can't do it wherever they're coming from. And so that's the core of what, and a giant government that controls everything squelches that. It breaks and you will destroy the spirit of America and the idea of what America is meant to be if we continue to allow these institutions to grow and metastasize, especially since they're now full of DEI hires. These people are not going to be nice to the creators.
Yeah, well, they're kleptocrats, right? Isn't that what that word means? Kleptocracy. They basically steal from the kulaks. They
Yeah.
steal the product of they come along. They can't make anything themselves, so they come around with their hyper socialization and say, "Oh, this is mine now." Harvard University, this is now mine.
And when
Yeah.
when they don't have control of government anymore, then they start shooting you.
Right. And that's what's now happening. And, before Kirk, and I don't know if there's a tarot explanation for this too, or a esoteric one, but remember just before Kirk, there was this Beto speech, and I could feel them doing this. I could see it with Mamdani. I tweeted about it at the time. It was very clear that a switch was flipped somewhere in their networks to say, before we were being nice. Now it's time to take the rails off. We're going wild. And Beto said something like that. He was like, no more rules to your activism. Just take off you can do anything. Take any action, which is very obviously a call to violence, right? Or, maybe not even necessarily, but it's a call to very bad behavior, whatever you want to say. And then, of course, Charlie Kirk happens, shortly thereafter. It was very obvious that they were getting that direction to do that.
And that language has only increased since. And that's in that realm of activism. They have gotten more violent in their language. I mean, even Gavin Newsom, his language has been basically go out and be violent. That is the implicit message of a lot of Gavin Newsom's language.
No.
And that's where the left has always been like that, I think, for hundreds of years, as long as at least as long as Marxism has been around. Like, when we don't get what we want, we're going to get violent. And the right is not like that. It takes a lot to get the right to turn to violence, and I don't really look joyward to that possibility, because I know how violent the right could get.
But what's in America? Has there ever been an example of that? I mean, there was. Yeah, I guess you're talking about the Ku Klux Klan, which was a tiny thing, but punched above its weight class, right, for a while. You have the era of Ruby Ridge and Waco and the Oklahoma City bombing. But when else? I mean, when has there ever been a right-wing violent
There never
response in America?
Not really. Not any organized thing at any extensive level. And what I'm talking about is if it got so bad to the point where liberal governments in states across the country are passing laws that they're going to nationalize the farmland or whatever businesses and start handing it off to other people. If it ever comes to that, then the American dream is essentially dead. You've put those regular Americans into a corner. You back them into a corner. They are heavily armed, and I guarantee that you will see something that is entirely unprecedented in America. But that also is precisely what a lot of the globalists want. They want us to destroy ourselves.
Yeah, right.
And that's in that card, that third card, the Lord of Swiftness. That is the caution. Don't be too hasty. Don't get out there and start shooting. If America devolves into a shooting war, that is also the end of America as we have known it, and it will destabilize everything. And I want to avoid that. I would much rather have a situation where we could just go back to the 90s. What I mean by that is just the American dream was working fine for most people in the 90s. Working better than it is nowadays.
So this is something I tried to ask people on the internet the other day, and everybody had annoying answers. But it was we have played this before. So there was the 70s, which is, I don't know if you've read Days of Rage. Have you read Days of Rage?
I haven't, but I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, high recommend. If you don't, can't read the actual book, read. There's a great review of it that was like my original political red pill ever by one of these guys. Of course, I could never remember. It was called something. It was in something. David Hines, I think. It was a review of him of this book, and there was 3,500, 3,000 domestic left-wing bombings from 70 to 80 in this country. And then for whatever reason, that violence stopped, not pretty much ceased from 80 to 2000. And we had these two amazing decades of ingenuity. You know, half the companies in the world were founded during this time. And, you know, you're right. It was for a little while there, they put away these communists, or these communists were quiet for whatever reason. I mean, the most annoying answer to that question that I received was they won. It's because they won. That's why they went away. And it's like, no, but they really didn't win, because you can't say that the 90s, all these products of the 90s were actually secretly communist products. I mean, you can, but you'd be wrong. So we did put it back in the package for a little while. But now it's fully back out. And I wonder, how did we put it back then? And can we ever go back to them? Like, can we ever get back to that period where Americans are just allowed to kind of do their thing for a little while? I'm not sure.
I don't know either, because it's a different America. There's a lot more. There's probably, 40 or 50 more million illegal immigrants in the country than there were in 1990.
Right.
And the numbers, the white population have decreased radically in that time. Heritage Americans, and so I don't know, the left, the other part of the 90s and 80s was we put away all the like race grievance stuff. Television was basically black and white. I mean, and so I don't know that is going to be hard to put back in the box at this point, because so many on the left have like their entire world view is now white people bad, everybody else is good. And I don't know how do you not think that anymore if you've been thinking it for 10 years?
Right.
So I don't know. Part of me is like, I want a very peaceful move back into creative, everybody getting along America. And then another part of me thinks that we're going to have to go through hell to rebuild and restore America.
Right.
And I don't know. I've been trying. I've been trying to just influence the conversation just enough on the right to get people not to think too hastily. Don't go out there and be violent like the left is.
No, well, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't see that coming from the right at all. I think the intelligence agencies spent the last 40 years completely eviscerating any right-wing organization at all that would do such a thing, right? I think it pretty much just like utterly. If you were a jihadist or a racist in the past 40 years and you were doing anything, if you had a Discord, if you had anything at all, you could bet that there was a Fed in your midst. There's a great podcast about the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping attempt. It was like 5 feds and like one guy that was not a Fed. And that was the whole thing.
There were like 3 guys, and it was like 15 or 14 feds, basically.
Yeah. And it was like, and they pinned it on the one dude. Like a couple of the guys were like, this is bad. I'm not, this is clearly a federal operation. I'm out. And they got one guy who was like dumb enough to like show up at the meeting or whatever. And that was the whole Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping attempt. It was completely fake. So look, if you're a jihadist or a racist, you know that somebody's listening to your phone calls, right? You can just know, that. if you're a far left tranny killer who's literally saying, I'm going to go kill people, nobody's listening for the past 40 years. You have no oversight. There is no dollars going to you. The ADL isn't paying any attention. The intelligence agencies aren't paying attention. You're just carte blanche. It's just like, do whatever the hell you want. And that's why it has developed to this grade. Because it's just been open. It's been completely 100% enforcement on one side, 0% enforcement on the other side. And you have to imagine that's going to change a little bit, right? I mean, it's like they can't simply just allow this to keep happening with impunity. So I think that, yeah.
I assume this FBI is going to be putting a bunch of resources into that. And then there's also like the 4chan crowd that is kind of doing the grassroots looking into these people. So there's definitely more oversight over that.
Well, we also need our own ADL / Southern Poverty Law Center kind of nonprofit NGO system of identifying political extremists, which is something that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to literally do that. And not to, what?
I think Charlie Kirk did some of that where they had that list of professors that were basically communists.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I want to couch it in, though, I don't want it to be... The last thing I want to do is just create some list of bad people. I wanted to literally do people who are violent. Actually, it's not that hard to find them. They're very much around. And people who literally are, when Gretchen Whitmer posts, or Comey posts a picture saying 8645. That's okay, that is a literal violence. That is literal violence. I'm not saying let's make a list of people who are far left. I don't want to participate in that. But people who are literally being violent, that's worth cataloging as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, all right, let's talk about you in our last little tiny bit of time here. So you have this great, really well done Substack called Born on the 4th of July. I'm guessing you were born on the 4th of July? Okay. Called Born on the 4th of July. And then... oh, hey, Ghost Boy Wonder says, I made a bot that was scanning Blue Sky for radical violent leftists. Dude, seriously, if you have that, Ghost Boy Wonder, email me or DM me. Where can you do? Here, DM me on Twitter, Disgraced Prop. DM me on Twitter. So anyway, you have this great thing. You were born on the 4th of July, actually. What are your plans for this Substack? It's very well done.
Thank you. I don't, when I started it, I was basically I need to get started writing regularly again. And so, and at that time it was towards the end of COVID, I wanted to help, I wanted to get some clarity about the situation myself. And I wanted to help any readers make sense of the world that we're living in. And it wasn't until after the election and I felt took a deep breath and was okay, I don't have to totally fight the powers that be now. And that's where the whole turn towards esotericism and the tarot and whatnot. So longer term, I'm going to continue with that. And then just occasional critiques of culture. And then also eventually talk deeper about the Kabbalah and alchemy and whatnot. I'm also the chief guardian of the Octagon Society Order of Spiritual Alchemy, which is a old institution, old community of people who use the old concept of alchemy to transform the self, transform the narratives that we have been told that we use to hold ourselves back. Basically turning the detritus of our life into spiritual and mental and physical gold, so that we can better act in the world. I have probably 1,400 subscribers after 3 years. On the one hand, I'm writing about esotericism, and most of the guys on the right are Christian. And so they aren't very interested. But most of the people in esotericism are coming from like California New Age, and they aren't interested in like base talk. So so I don't know. I just keep writing.
Nice. Well, there's a lot of right-wing esotericism that's been growing. I mean, it might have sort of reached its peak recently, but I think keep doing it. And you're a great writer and a great talker and thinker. So thanks so much for joining. And yeah, let's stay in touch.
Right on. Thank you.
Cool. Peace, man. Thank you.
Take care, man.